Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the most embarrassing military failures Russia has faced in recent years. The so-called robot tank that was supposed to revolutionize modern warfare, but has instead turned into a complete disaster. This story not only exposes the flaws in Russia's defense technology, but also reveals how desperate Moscow has become to maintain its image of military superiority while facing setbacks on the battlefield. When Russia first unveiled its Uran-9 unmanned combat vehicle, it was presented as a symbol of future warfare, an autonomous tank capable of operating without direct human control, engaging enemy targets and protecting troops from a distance. The Kremlin promoted it as a major leap in robotics and artificial intelligence. Russian media showcased the vehicle as if it were something straight out of a sci-fi movie, claiming it could outperform any Western equivalent. But when the Uran-9 was actually tested in real combat conditions, reality hit hard, and it wasn't the glorious picture Putin had promised. The Uran-9 made its battlefield debut in Syria, where Russia had been intervening to support the Assad regime. This was supposed to be the perfect testing ground for the machine, a live combat environment to demonstrate its capabilities. However, according to reports from Russian military analysts themselves, the performance of the robot tank was nothing short of catastrophic. Communication systems failed repeatedly, making it impossible for operators to control the machine remotely. The vehicle's sensors were unreliable, often misidentifying targets or failing to detect threats altogether. Its weapon systems jammed or refused to fire accurately. In short, the so-called future of warfare turned into a metal coffin on wheels. Even Russian state defense publications had to admit that the Uran-9 was far from combat-ready. A classified report leaked in 2018 revealed that the robot tank could only be controlled from a distance of about 300 to 500 meters, far less than the kilometers long range originally advertised. That means the operators had to remain dangerously close to the front lines, completely defeating the purpose of using a robot in the first place. In addition, the vehicle's cameras and sensors could not provide consistent real-time video, making target identification nearly impossible. For a nation claiming to be a global military superpower, this was humiliating. But what made this embarrassment even worse was the way the Russian government tried to cover it up. Instead of acknowledging the technical problems and redesigning the system, officials insisted that the Uran-9 had been a success. They showed heavily edited videos of the machine firing weapons and patrolling empty streets, trying to convince the public that the project was on track. Yet independent military experts quickly exposed the truth. Those videos were staged, and the actual performance in Syria had been a total failure. The disaster of the Uran-9 highlights a deeper issue within Russia's defense industry: corruption, incompetence, and overconfidence. Billions of rubles have been poured into projects that look impressive on paper but crumble in real-world situations. Engineers are pressured to meet unrealistic deadlines and produce propaganda-friendly prototypes rather than functional systems. This problem has been a pattern for years. From the Su-57 stealth fighter that's still plagued with design issues to the Armata tank that rarely appears in parades anymore because of cost overruns, the story is the same. Russia's supposed next-generation weapons rarely live up to the hype. The irony is that Putin had hoped to use these advanced technologies to demonstrate Russia's dominance on the global stage. Instead, they've become symbols of its weakness. The robot tank fiasco perfectly captures how Moscow's obsession with prestige often outweighs practicality. The Kremlin wants to impress the world with high-tech gear, but when the time comes to prove its effectiveness, the results are laughable. The Uran-9 has now become a running joke among Western defense analysts, a reminder that flashy propaganda cannot substitute real engineering and battlefield success. Reports from inside Russia suggest that the failure of the Uran-9 caused major tension within the military-industrial complex. Some engineers reportedly blamed outdated Soviet-era components and poor communication infrastructure, while others pointed fingers at senior officials who demanded unrealistic results just to please Putin. Instead of investing in modern AI systems or advanced sensors, like those used in Western and Asian military technology, Russia tried to cut corners, and the result was a remote-controlled disaster that barely functions. To make matters worse, after the public embarrassment, Moscow didn't abandon the project. They doubled down, promising an improved version. But experts say there's little evidence that any meaningful progress has been made. While the rest of the world is moving toward drone swarms, automated reconnaissance vehicles, and AI-controlled systems that actually work, Russia's so-called improvements seem limited to cosmetic changes and propaganda videos. Even within Russian media circles, there's growing skepticism about whether these projects are worth the cost. The humiliation doesn't stop there. Western nations, particularly NATO members, have used the Uran-9 failure as a case study in what not to do when developing autonomous combat systems. Analysts have pointed out that the biggest flaw wasn't just technical, it was strategic. Russia rushed the project into service for propaganda value rather than ensuring it was truly functional. In contrast, nations like the United States and Israel have taken a much more systematic approach to integrating AI into warfare, running extensive simulations and real-world trials before deployment. The difference is clear. Where the West values results and safety, Russia values image and intimidation. Putin's grand vision of a high-tech Russian army now looks more like a fantasy. The failure of the robot tank is just one example of how internal corruption and overconfidence can destroy innovation. The more Moscow tries to showcase its power through untested prototypes, the more it exposes its own weaknesses. And with the ongoing war in Ukraine, these weaknesses have become painfully visible. Ukrainian troops, with access to relatively affordable Western drones, have managed to outsmart and outmaneuver Russian armored units that were supposed to represent the pinnacle of military engineering. The contrast couldn't be clearer. Small, flexible, and smart technology beats overhyped, malfunctioning machines built for show. Even within Russia, public confidence in the military's technological edge has been shaken. Commentators on Russian social media have mocked the Uran-9, calling it a radio-controlled toy tank, and joking that it belongs in a museum, not on a battlefield. For a government obsessed with projecting strength, this kind of public ridicule is devastating. It undercuts the narrative that Russia can compete with NATO's advanced weaponry and raises uncomfortable questions about how much of its defense spending actually produces real capability. At the end of the day, the Uran-9's failure isn't just about one machine, it's a symbol of systemic decay. It shows how propaganda-driven policy, lack of accountability, and the fear of disappointing Putin have crippled Russian innovation. Instead of learning from mistakes, the system hides them. Instead of encouraging progress, it punishes honesty. The result is predictable: technological stagnation disguised as progress. As the world watches Russia's ongoing military campaigns, the image of the Uran-9, stalling, losing connection, and missing its targets, serves as a perfect metaphor for Putin's broader ambitions. Just like his malfunctioning robot tank, the Russian war machine may look intimidating from afar. But up close, it's falling apart under the weight of its own lies. The age of robotic warfare is advancing rapidly across the globe, but Russia's attempt to lead it has ended in humiliation. Putin wanted a symbol of futuristic power. Instead, he got a monument to failure. And that failure may haunt Russia's military credibility for years to come.